Okay, so tonight's agenda, I guess, is twofold and then a possible threefold. Okay, so the twofold, the main plan was the Rashbam and his Hakdama to, well, not his, he doesn't have a Hakdama, but the three places in his commentary where he talks about what he does and what his view, like his approach to Pirush is. Okay, so that's like the main goal. Secondary agenda is Saadia Gaon has a short Pirush, short Hakdama to his short Pirush. Okay, he has two Pirushim on Chumash. The long one, which unfortunately we don't have most of. We have parts of it on Shemos, and then like other people cite it, but like it's lost to the ages. And then he had a yes, until Torah restores it. I had another conversation today with the head of Al HaTorah about asking him about if the Radak on Tehillim is the current version, is the most accurate version. He said it's like riddled with errors. And he said we currently don't have, because I've noticed in the Torah Chaim on the Radak on Tehillim and the Mikros Gedolos in the Radak on Tehillim, very different.
Really?
Yeah, and so I assume Torah Chaim is more accurate, but I didn't know about the Al HaTorah one. So he said currently we don't have the critical edition, but if you would like to help make one, then then I'd be happy. So I said I don't have time right now, but like if anyone wants to like help do it, Anyway, so the Saadia Gaon on his long Pirush doesn't exist in its full form, but there's a Hakdama to his short one, so that's the second item on the agenda. And then the third item, I don't know if we want to start with this or end with it, but I was kind of thinking like right before this started, and that's what led me to the reverse of like, what is the purpose of this shiur as it has been until now, in terms of like, what's the purpose of going through Hakdamos? So you want to talk about that now, or do you want to do Rashbam, Saadia Gaon, and then end off with that? End off?
Oh, I like to start with that because
Start?
I think they could.
Interrupt mid-sentence.
I think that if we do it at the end, then it might end up being artificially cut off, and then we won't go back.
Okay, so how about this? Let's do the short version of that now, the discussion version, and then if we have time at the end, then we'll do the rehearsal that I thought to do, and then if we don't have time, then we'll do the rehearsal some other time. Okay, so what's the purpose of doing Hakdamos to Chumash?
Understanding, like getting a dare for reading Chumash,
yeah,
what to look for and how to think about.
I'd say
okay.
I'd say even more fundamentally, understanding what Chumash is and what you do when you're learning Chumash.
Okay, good. Is that the same or different than what you said?
I guess I was talking about it more in the framework of like how to what studying Chumash is, but I guess like.
Okay, because these are two aspects of it, yeah, and then there's a third option. Say again. Pashut knowledge. A Pashut knowledge, yid. Yeah.
I guess it could.
If you want to send the author.
That's the third one. Yeah. Okay. Good. Right. Okay. So I don't know. First, second, third. First goal, right, is each of the Mefarshim clearly had like a different approach to Chumash, and so the question is like, what does that show us about what Chumash is? Okay, that's like one overarching goal for everything, and I think we saw that the best with the Ralbag, because he of all of the things we've seen so far, like Ibn Ezra was more like styles of Pirushim. Ralbag was like, what is Torah? That was his first question, and then like, what is the Torah made of, and how am I going to dissect Torah in a way that like makes it accessible? So like that is a clear vision of what Torah is. Now, unfortunately, not everyone does that. Like we get some of that in the Rambam Hakdama to Mishnah Torah, but we don't get that at all from Rashi in an explicit form. Ibn Ezra didn't really talk about that much, So like that's something though I think we all have to have in mind. Like what is Chumash? And like I said in the Tehillim shiur last night, the Chumash is a book, So like what is the book about, and how is the book meant to be read? That's like a fundamental question that I think like if you're not aware of the question, then the type of learning you do is only going to be on the idea level. It's not going to be on the forming a view of what Chumash is. And like, I think that's something, if you're aware of it, then certain insights you get are going to like filter into that question and inform your view of that and like start to develop it. But if you're not aware of it, you could just go through all life not knowing it. Okay. So that's like one thing, understanding what Chumash is. Secondly is how to learn Chumash. And that's something where like there are different things, different different approaches, and then also you're going to have a different style that you gravitate towards. Again, I've said this many times. Rabbi Zimmer's style is much more towards midrash. My style is much more towards pshat, and like you got to go with your, look, Ibn Ezra is much more towards pshat. Rashi's more towards midrash. Like, so you got to follow your mind, but like, learning different types of approaches. And then the third is when you're learning a particular mafaresh, knowing what they're trying to do will help you to learn what they're saying. So big question here, which we haven't done yet. The classic question, is Rashi only doing pshat or not? That's going to change the way you learn Rashi. If you learn that every comment of Rashi is only coming for pshat, so then when he writes a midrash, or if he says, this is the pshuto, here's the midrasho, then the midrash is also going to have to do with the pshat. And you're gonna assume that the midrash he's bringing has to give insight into the pshat. If not, though, if you assume that he does stuff other than pshat, so then the question is, well, what is he doing? Why doesn't he just quote all the midrashim, and then like, what are you supposed to get out of it? So that's something that, like, as someone who's presumably all of you are going to be learning like Chumash through different mafarshim, doing the Hagdamos will set you up for learning how to access that mafaresh. And like, let's again, just Ralbag is like my go-to example. If you didn't know what the Ralbag was doing and you just open up the Ralbag, you're just not even going to know how to use his book. Like the fact that there are 3 parts of his perush and knowing what he does in each one and knowing what his view of Torah is, like, you're just going to misuse it because you don't know what he's doing. And that's why I can't stand it that people don't read the introductions. Because like at the very least, that's like the user's manual written by the author, like, so I feel like that's why we should do that. And then the third point, and this segues into the rehearsal, which we'll hold off on for now, is there are 2 ways to understand what the Mefarish is trying to do. One is from the outside and one is from the inside. Okay, so let's say, for example, Mefarshim that I've had a lot of experience with, like Ralbag or Abravanel, I am confident, or let's say like in Mishlei, Rabbeinu Yonah, Meiri, Metzudas David, Radak, I'm confident in being able to tell you from experience, this is what they're doing and this is how they do it. Other Mefarshim, even the ones I've learned a lot, and certainly the ones I haven't learned a lot, like Ibn Ezra and Rashbam, I don't have a shita of my own based on experience. So I'm much, much more relying on what their words are saying of how they say to use their perush. And I think that's a big difference because it's very easy to like we kind of encountered this in the Rambam Bikush here. He says he's going to do something. Did he actually succeed or not? Does he stick to it? Like, how clear is his intention in what he's doing? Like, so like, just be aware of that distinction of like, we're going to be going through, let's say today, the Rashbam. This is what he says he's doing. But when you actually learn it and see it from the inside, you're going to get a different picture. And there are some like methodology shiurim that will try, like I have a friend who has a podcast, which is a very good podcast, where he will give like an overview of the Mefarish, and then he'll give like snippets that exemplify the commentaries, like what their approach is. I could do that with certain people, but I can't do it with others. And I don't want to do it with people who I'm not familiar with. So, because I feel like it's very easy to just pick stuff and say, oh, well, this is emblematic of his derech. But like, unless you know that for sure, then like you might be misleading people. So I don't feel comfortable to do that. Like I thought about doing that with the Rashbam. I just don't know enough about the Rashbam to be able to do that. Yeah, Isaac?
I think the point about how the introduction really informs how you approach what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was exemplified by our discussion about what the Mishnah Torah is.
Yeah.
Because if you just opened it up,
yes,
you could say, oh, like each of these things is like each of these like halachos is like meant to be independent, and each one is like self-contained unless it like references you somewhere else.
Yeah.
But if you see how he talks about what he's doing in the work, then you understand how it's meant to be learned and used.
Exactly. Yeah. It's and like again, I don't see how people can ignore what the author himself says about what he's doing.
The tutorial intent doesn't matter.
Oh no! Get out! That's the 15th, the 14th ikar. Is authority intent doesn't.
Authorial intent does matter.
Oh! Wow. Okay. Now we know how to refute that. Okay, so you got one already. Here's so again, Rashbam does not. Oh yeah, here's the fourth one. Yeah. So Rashbam doesn't have a formal hakdama, but disclaimer also. Rashbam, again, as a thing that is riddled with errors, apparently. Okay, so I think this is the most critical edition. And you could tell there's a rule of thumb. How do you know what is the critical edition? Because of how much they criticize other people. And he says in the beginning, I spent Shabbos reading the Hakdama, and and he says all the other ones are filled with errors, and things were lost, and blah blah blah, and we restored it, and authoritative manuscripts. So I'm assuming that it's more like the second half of the puzzle, than the anchoring device. Yeah, he's coming along and being choker him. A few little bits of biographical information about the Rashbam is that he was Rashi's grandson, right? Not considered one of the Bali Tosfos. I don't exactly know how that worked historically, because it was basically Rashi's daughter Yocheved married Rav Meir, and then they had three. I think only three sons. I mean, certainly three famous sons: Rashbam, Rivam, and Rabbeinu Tam. Talk about a trio of brothers, right? And Rashbam was the oldest. I think his father died at such a time that practically Rashbam was Rabbeinu Tam's main Rebbe. And adorable nickname that Rabbeinu Tam had, he called him Rabbeinu Achi. Okay, I think that's a great nickname. Rabbeinu Tam argued with him a lot, but he did consider the Rashbam to be his main Rebbe. And the interesting thing that they say here is that that they only quote their father. I don't know about the Rabbeinu Tam. Rashbam only quotes his father a couple times, but he quotes Rashi a lot. Okay, and Rabbeinu Tam barely quotes his father. So apparently, I mean, his father was a great Talmid Chacham, but they don't treat their father as their Rebbe. They treat Rashi as their Rebbe. And Rashbam was old enough that he learned with Rashi and argued with him a lot. And that was a big influence. So that's, and it's also even, I mean, we don't know that much biographical information. It's not even known how long he lived. The listed dates are 1185 to 1085 to 1158. Okay, so that's around the time that he lived. Okay, but we don't really even know that for sure. All right, so that's just a little biographical info. Okay, so let us look at this. Now, what we're going to do is the first two entries. The first one is very short, and he alludes to something, and then the second one he elaborates on it. So we're going to learn them in concert. Okay, so this is in his first comment in Beraishit, if you want to look there. Okay, so he says like this. Oh, and as we do this, I think it would be beneficial for us to compare it in our minds to the Ibn Ezra's approach. Ibn Ezra and the Mahari Qur'an that we did last time.
Yeah. How could we just sum up in 2 words what their approaches were?
Yeah. So Ibn Ezra said there are 5 ways to learn. Right? No. So his way was you do you figure out. So his definition of pshat is authorial intent.
Right.
Okay. It seems to be. You figure it out based on the diktuk, just based on grammar. You disregard midrash. Right. And then not because it's not valuable, but because that's not the purpose of the commentary. The ideas are good in themselves, but not in terms of the understanding of the mikra. And then the only time that you go to the Masorah is for halachic areas. And if the halacha contradicts the mikra, then you go with the halacha from the Torah Peh. And the Mahari Qur'an said that you need to learn pshat before you do midrash, and anyone who does midrash before pshat is someone who's being swept along in flood waters, and they try to grab on a hold to anything that they can, but then they just get swept away. So you need to and his idea was the pasuk is perfect. The psukim are perfect. In the sense that they supply everything you need, and it's entirely contained in the text. And I already gave an example of how the Rashbam differs with that because of the Divrei Hayamim Shel Moshe, the fan fiction of Moshe Rabbeinu, where it says the Isha HaKushis, Rashbam and his pshat on that learns that from this history book. So he's a pshat commentator, but that's not from the Mikra. So that's already something different. Yeah. Okay. So here's what he says. Yeah, Beraishit bara Elokim. Okay. Yavinu hamaskilim, and this is the short statement of intent. Yavinu hamaskilim. Are you looking at the right thing?
Oh,
yeah. Yavinu hamaskilim. Okay. He says repeatedly that his commentary is intended for maskilim. Not like the Enlightenment era ones. Yeah. Yeah. So,
Still not fun.
oh, because we're not masculine. All right. So, Kikol divrei Rabbeinu udrasho sehem kini vamitim. So first thing he says is all the words of our rabbis and their drashos are certain and true. Okay, so like that's responding clearly to a view that like someone's skeptical about the drashos. V'zehu ha'amor b'Masechet Shabbos. Okay, now this is a wild statement. Okay, and I forgot who says this. Does the footnote say? Gimel. No. What was that? Okay, Rav Kahana. Where do you see that? Okay. Havena bar tamnes reishinin v'lo yadana de'ein mikra yotzei midei pshuto. I was 18 years old and I didn't know that the mikra doesn't depart from its pshat. And later on, he's going to quote a fuller version of that, where he says basically that he learned like all of Talmud, and until he was 18, he didn't know that the mikra didn't depart from the pshat. Now we think that that's a pretty basic thing.
Wow.
Right?
So we thought there were only drashos.
Sounds like that, or he thought that the drushos were the pshat, or like that there is no concept of, you know, so that's a very different starting point than the Mahari Kra, right?
Yeah.
And the question is, what does the Mahari Kra do with that Gemara?
Yikes.
Okay, yeah. All right, so we'll see him reiterate that. Then he says, "V'ikar ha'halachos v'hadrashos yotzim miyitur ha'mikraos o mishinoi halashon." So the essence of the halachos, the root of the halachos and the drashos emerges from the extra things in the psukim, in the mikras, and the anomalies of the language. Shenichtaf pshuto shel mikra b'lashon she'icholin lilmon himenu ikar hadrasha, because the pshat of the mikra was written in a way where you could learn the essence of the drasha. Okay, so like he's saying that it was by intent, and that the drashos allow you to learn out the halachos from these extra things in the pshat. Now I don't know what that says about what the nature of midrash is. Okay. And he says, "Kamo ele todos hashemayim va'aretz bihi bar'am v'darshu chachamim bi'avraham." Right? He bar'am is, you just rearrange the letters, bi'avraham me'arichos halashon. What is the arichos halashon? What is the arichos halashon?
You don't need to bar'am.
I guess not. I mean, I guess it depends on how you learn todos hashemayim va'aretz, right? I mean, yeah. So then he says, "Ata afarish perushi harishonim b'pasuk zeh lahodia livnei adam lama lo ra'isi lafarish kamosan." So he's going to quote the pirushim of the Rishonim to explain why he doesn't explain it like them. And I actually forgot to see if he actually gets back to how he explains it. Hold on just one second here. I don't think he does. I think he just quotes them. Okay, fine. All right, so hold on to that thought. Let's go to the next one now. This is now his main. This is what I treat as his hakdama on Chumash. Okay, this is in Vayeshev. Okay, much later. It's on the second pasuk. Okay, Ela todos Yaakov. Okay, Yaskilu v'yavinu oha v'sechal. You okay with that, Yaakov? Being oha v'sechal? Okay, good, right? So not masculine, but the oha v'sechal, people who love intelligence, should comprehend and understand. Ma shalimdu rabbaseinu ki im mikra yotzei midei pshuto. So he does hold by in mikra yotzei midei pshuto. Af ki ikara shel Torah bas lulamdenu ulahodinu biramizas hapshat v'hahagados v'hahalachos v'hadinin aide arichos alashan. Even though the essence of the Torah comes to teach us and to inform us through allusions in the pshat, and the hagados and the halachos and the laws through the redundancies of lashon v'aide shloshim u'shtayim midos shel Rabbi Eliezer b'no shel Rabbi Yossi Aglili, and through like the those midos v'aide shlosh esrei midos shel Rabbi Yishmael. Okay, so that's like what the midos shetrod in Rashbam and the hagados and the dinim. That's the essence. Okay, the harishonim. This is the crazy statement. Okay, not crazy, but like the what? Harishonim mitoch chasidusam nisasku lintos achrei hadrashos shehin iker. Okay, now what's that responding to? Like, why does he have to tell you that as a student of Chumash who has exposure to the words of Chazal? What might you think that this is like coming to refute?
Wait, can you just explain exactly what he's saying?
Yeah, he says the Rishonim, and that's talking about Chazal. because of their piety, involve themselves in the drushos, because that's the essence.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, let me read on. Maybe this will be clear.
Oh,
Umitoch kach, and because of this, lo hurgulu be'omek pshuto shel mikra. They didn't accustom themselves to the depth of the pshat of scripture.
you might think that the Chazal are trying to get at the pshat, and they're just
Okay, so one possibility is you might think that they're trying to get the pshat. Okay, what's another possibility?
they think there is no.
Yeah, that they didn't involve themselves in the pshat because they just disregard it, and like that's not a legitimate approach. Okay, so he's saying no, they were involved in because when you look at Chazal, you don't see them doing pshat for the most part. I mean, you see them doing lots of drushos. Occasionally you'll get a pshat in like Midrash Rabbah or whatever, but it's very either halachic drushos or agadic drushos. So you might think that that is what it means to learn Chumash. So he's saying that that's because of their chasidus. Okay, that they were involved in the main part of Torah of like darshaning the anomalies, but they just weren't accustomed in the omek pshuto shel mikra, which is a phrase that he uses a lot, which we'll have to get to. Okay, and now he goes on and he says, "Ulefi she'amru chachamim," and since the chachamim said, and maybe we could do this Gemara later on, al tarbu b'nechem bihigayon, don't accustom your kids in higayon, and I think the footnote explains higayon b'gemar shalanu, see footnote 12. Hagirsa he manu b'nechem min higayon, withhold your kids from higayon. Ayin b'firish Rashi sham lo targilum b'mikra yoser midai mishum damashcha. Don't accustom your kids in scripture more than you should, because it's mashcha. Kolomar limud hamikra hu moshech. It prolongs. Okay. I don't know if it's Moshe Gassalev or Moshe Gassaman. Like they become involved in it a lot.
Why is that like a bad thing?
Right.
Where are we?
Oh, sorry. I was just looking in the footnote 12. Yeah.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. Okay. So he's bringing this as a raya that like Chazal advocated that you shouldn't spend excess time on Mikra. Remind me if I have time. I want to show you a Meiri on that. I was just looking at it right before here. It's a good Meiri. All right. Even though it's not relevant here. V'gam amru ha'ozik b'mikra mida ve'ena mida. Someone who's involved in mikra, it's a trait and not a trait. Like it's a virtue and not a virtue. Okay. Anyone familiar with the full Gemara there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure, we're going to talk about it a lot.
Yeah. So what's the full thing? I always forget the.
Mishnah, Zumida.
Yeah.
Gemara, Emida Yosemite.
You mean Emida Gedol Mizo or Yosemite? Right. Like there's no greater Mida.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in Rebbe's time, then they appended to the Mishnah, Ulam, I don't know the exact Hebrew, but you should run to do Mishnah more than Gemara. Because people were abandoning Mishnah.
Okay, fine. I feel like that's the case with Mikra now, right? But I mean, certainly that's what he's going to imply, kind of. But Mikra they say is a Mida and not a Mida. Okay, so he's bringing these statements to show you that like Chazal did not consider Mikra to be of utmost importance, but he's saying it's because of their chasidus that they wanted to focus on the main thing. Okay. Sorry. You're right. He even quotes it. That's why I read it recently. Okay. Because of this, they were not so accustomed to the pshat of the psukim. And then he quotes that memra again. This is the full version. I was 18 years old and I learned all of the Talmud. I didn't know the Mikra. Okay. Yeah. So if we stop there for a second, okay, like this is a shita. I mean, I don't understand it. Okay, like you would to me, what is much more intuitive is the Mahari Kra, that of course they're involved in the pshat and they went into the drushos because they already mastered the pshat or like they thought it was pashut, But he says repeatedly they were not hurgul in the pshat and they didn't even know that the pshat existed, So what does that say about the relationship between the pshat and the midrash? And what does that say about like the priority that they had about the pshat in their view? Like, let's say, for example, the Rambam, that shlish Torah b'chsav, shlish, Torah b'al peh, and shlish Talmud. Like, I assume the shlish and Torah b'chsav means you learn the mikra.
Well, I mean, you can't ask a question from the Rambam on Chazal.
It's not from the Rambam; it's from the Gemara.
Oh, right.
It's halacha. You know?
Is he saying that Chazal did this, or that some people think that Chazal did this?
He's saying that Chazal did this, right? I mean, he quotes, certainly this guy, Rav Kahana did. Or at least that's how he's reading him, right? Is I didn't know that that these drushes were not pshat. Yeah.
Maybe that's just like until you memorize it.
You mean they involve themselves in Torah Shebeksav until they just get the text, and then they it could be. I mean, but even that is a different understanding of what the pshat is, that the value is just as like fodder for drush, right? Yeah, that could be. I mean, yeah. But this is an open question in terms of the way that we learn drushos, okay? Because you'll notice, I mean, I don't want to speak for all briskers, but typically briskers tend to treat drushos like that they don't learn the pshat, and they just treat like the drushos are like, you know, the point of the drush is just to get the halacha, and then like they don't learn the pshuto shemikra, they don't learn Torah Shebeksav, and you know, a lot of people don't even look up the psukim, you know, so like that is a certain derech in like learning halacha, and like certainly in terms of the if you want to just be involved in halacha, you could do that. Like it's not like you're gonna misunderstand the halacha if you don't understand where the drasha comes from. But the question is like, you know, again, the according to the Mahar Yikra, you're missing the foundation, and according to him, he's saying, no, the pious people wouldn't even be involved in that.
I think that I've heard people say, not here, but is that learning Chumash is Bittul Torah.
Yeah, I mean that is a
it's literally the definition of Torah.
no, but I mean that is the Ashkenazi yeshiva approach did take that in, you know, like I mean look, I mean I don't know, I've heard rumors that in pause for that. All right, yeah.
I thought the phrase in Mikra Yosef Shuta was talking about taking something literally or not.
It could be. I mean, I guess on a simplest level, then that's it. Could be.
Okay.
The only reason I'm doubtful is that that's not what he's saying, because he's contrasting. He's using that as an example of not being hurgul ba'omek pshuto shel mikra. And omek pshuto shel mikra, however you understand it, must be much more than just taking the pasuk literally.
Yeah.
There's pshat, and then there's the omek of the pshat, which is like there, right? And he's saying that what's an example of how they weren't like of how Chazal didn't do this because of their piety is this guy saying that Rav Kahana saying I didn't know that Mikra Yosef Pshuta. So like, you see what I'm saying? Like they weren't involved in the omek Pshuta Shal Mikra, you know?
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
The fact that he didn't know it, it sounds like that's the right thing, and he just didn't know that. For however you're explaining,
Yeah.
he didn't know that.
I mean, that's how the Rashbam is saying. He's saying it's mitoch chasidusam, right? Is that what you're saying? Meaning like, meaning Rashbam is quoting him l'shvach.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He's praising him.
Guess so. Right.
But he's saying, but clearly the Rashbam is like gearing up to say that that's not what I'm going to do. Right? Yeah. All right. So let's go on and see what he says now. V'gam Rabbeinu Shlomo, Avi Imi. Right? Even Rabbeinu Shlomo, the father of my mother, that's Rashi. Meir Einei Gola, the one who enlightened the eyes of the exile. Sheperish Torah Nevi'im Uksuvim, who explained all of Tanakh. Nasan Leiv Lefarsh Pshuto Shel Mikra. So he applied himself to explain the Pshuto Shel Mikra. Not necessarily exclusively, okay, but he applied himself to explain Pshuto Shel Mikra. V'av ani, and even I, Shmuel ben Rabbi Meir Chasano, Shmuel the son of Meir, his son-in-law, Zecher Tzaddik Livracha, Nisvakachti imo ulafanav. I argued with Rashi and in front of him. V'hodali, and he admitted to me that if he had time, that he would have made other commentaries of the new pshatim that occur to him every day. Wow. So he's saying Rashi is admitting, so in other words, like, don't think, like everyone was aware that Rashi wrote commentaries on pshat, but don't think that like Rashi just like did it to like fill some need. The fact that Rashi saying, if I had more time, I would do more pshat, shows that Rashi holds its value. Okay. V'ata yiru'u, one more line. Kishib, wait a minute. Oh, I cut it off. Oh, because I think maybe I cut it off because it wasn't important. Let me just see. I think it was just like 2 words.
What Not that off.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's from a different. That's different. Yeah.
Okay.
The Ata Yiru Hamaskilim Masha Pirsha Rishonim. Yeah, that's what it says. Now you see what the Maskilim explain. Yeah. Okay, so that's his attitude here. Is that that don't think that the fact that Chazal didn't involve themselves in Pshat means that they didn't think it was important. It's that they thought that they were involved in the most important thing. Okay, but the question that we still have standing is like, again, I don't have an answer to this. Is what like Mimanav Shach, like if Pshat is important, so then like shouldn't they have done that? I don't know, before they did the other stuff. I mean, it's not I guess important is different than Iker, but like, you know, it still is an open question. Why didn't they involve themselves in Pshat? You know, clearly he and Rashi hold that Pshat is important. And clearly he holds that the Iker is the halachos, but why not do both? You know, like, and I don't have an answer to that question, but he raises it.
He's saying at that time no one was involved in it, or just like Chazal?
He says Chazal. He doesn't say what like common people did. Yeah. So I don't have answers to this. I'm just raising the questions.
Only so much time in the day. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can understand how Midrash and Halacha are important, but like Midrash and Gada, I don't know. I don't see why that's more important than Pshat.
Right. Especially if you go with the Mahari Cross thing about how like, you know, the shot is perfect, you know. Okay, one more Rashbam just to get the last statement of purpose here. So this is in Parshas Mishpatim, and this is something that is a little controversial. Again, he starts off, I guess this is how you know he's doing a Hakdama move. Yedu v'yavino yode eseichel. Now this is yode eseichel, not maskil and not olve eseichel. Okay. Kilo basi lefarish halachos. So this is Parshas Mishpatim, lots of mitzvos, right? You should know, all of the Yodei Seichel should know that I didn't come to explain halachos. Alpha Pish Hemeker. Again, he doesn't want you to think that his pirush reflects his belief that the pshat is the ikar. Kamoshe pirashti b'Beraishis, as I explained in Beraishis. Kim yitur psukim hamikros nishmaim ha'hagados v'halachos. Because from the extra words in the mikros, then you can understand. Learn out the hagados and halachos. You can find some of those in Rashi's pirush, meaning the halachic stuff.
Wait, so isn't that this is okay? Yeah, right.
Okay. V'ani lefarish pshutin shel mikros basi. I'm coming to explain the pshat of the psukim. Ve'efarish. Okay, here we go. Ve'afarish hadinim v'halachos lefi derech eretz. I'm going to explain the dinim and halachos according to derech eretz.
That's a term that means so many like
yes
things.
Yeah, I forgot what this footnote says. Hold on, footnote. What is that thing?
Social grace.
What?
Tabito?
Social grace.
Hapshatus hamishchat shemichol yom. V'chim shgam Rashi. Hishtam shebitui derech eretz b'mishmah shel signon hadibor hamukubal o hanoach b'mukubal. Rashi afpam lo ta'an shepirusha l'tar nichtav lefi derech eretz. Rashbam masbir mispar pa'amim shel hevdel min derech parshanuso derech haparshanus shel Rashi hu sherashbam pirish as a Torah lefi derech eretz klomar shepirshanusam mivuseses al hahanacha shedibur Torah kalash b'nei Adam. Yeah, there we go. Okay, yeah. So this is something that I did not pick examples of, but what he's going to do is like this. Okay, if you're learning Mishpatim, Parshas Mishpatim, you're probably going to expect to learn out halachos from it. Okay, what he's going to do is he's going to explain the psukim in a way that, like, if you just explained it based on the psukim themselves as a standalone thing, without the Torah Sheba'al Peh interpretation, what value would you get from it? Now that's why it's so important that he introduced this by saying the halachos are ikar. He doesn't want you to think like Ibn Ezra that like what?
I think that was a shiur head now.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about like Torah Sheba'al framework versus Torah Sheba'al Peh framework.
Yeah.
Sign.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Like the value of knowing how that would hypothetically play out without Torah Sheba'al Peh. Like
Yeah, right.
Like make Ikar Hadin true.
Right. So that's a perfect example where like what would Ibn Ezra do in a case like that?
Oh, he would say that's not. shot.
Yeah, he would just go with the Torah Shabbal Peh, right? But what Rashbam is going to do, which ironically he doesn't do on Ayin Taf Zayin. I looked it up first here, but like what he says he's going to do is he's going to explain it just based on the pesukim themselves, because presumably there is a reason why the Torah said Ayin Taf Zayin instead of saying you got to pay money, right? And he wants to bring that out, so that gives an indication of like he knows that that's not the actual interpretation of it in the sense of how you're supposed to act on it, but he says that there's value in the way that the Torah Piksaf expressed itself. And that's what he tries to do. And so that's something that I say is radical because, first of all, like, who would we disapprove of who does that? Who explains it just based on the Torah itself? Yeah, the Tzdukim, right? Because they don't even hold by Torah Shabbal Peh, right? Also the Christians, right? Also the academics. What was that?
Yeah, I said the same thing.
Yeah, right. Like they neglect Torah Shabbal Peh, But he holds that there is value in doing that, and as long as you realize that that's not going to be like whatever conclusions you reach, that's not Ratzon Hashem. Ratzon Hashem is expressed in the halachos. There is value in doing that.
I don't think it's radical.
Yeah. It's just as Ibn Ezra says, off the center. But yeah. Okay, so that's all I got on the Rashbam. Again, I did not feel qualified to go through and sorry. One more statement. I just didn't finish reading. Alpha Pichin halach was ikar. Yeah, that was what I was saying. But even nevertheless, the halachos are the essence. Kmosha Amru, as they said, Rabbi Seinu, halacha okeres mikra. Halacha uproots mikra. Yeah. Okay. So that's all I got on the Rashbam. And there's, maybe when I look through in the Parsha, if I see examples, what?
For example, it brings in Zeh Shabbos.
Oh, yeah. Look, like I said, just because he says he's going to do something doesn't mean he does it. Yeah. So that's what he's doing. If I find good exemplifications of this, I'll show you, but I didn't have any on hand. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. All right. You want to do Saadia Gaon now?
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't think that's for the moment.
Okay. Think about while I pass it the Saadia Gaon. It's not a very long thing. Here we go. Uh-oh.
It's just like a big
Oh,
block of
no.
text.
Did I?
Text.
Hold on. Oh, no, good. It's the beginning. What was that?
I hate seeing text like this.
Why?
One paragraph is just like the whole page.
Oh, you like columns?
Yeah, or just smaller paragraphs. So
Yeah.
much more digestible.
Yeah, I mean, good writing technique. Yeah.
About the Rashbam.
Yeah.
It sounds like he's saying that like I think the traditional things that he's talking about, it sounds like stuff that you can learn from in a more practical way, either like practical halacha or about like how to live, I'd say. I think that's what like Midrash is about. Whereas when you're learning the shot of the Chumash for itself, there's conflict in that, but it's not I don't exactly know how to formulate it.
No, I think about it. I mean, again, I'd like to understand his view because to me it makes no sense. Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
It could be consistent if he himself didn't do shot, like it would all make sense. Sort of.
Right.
Like,
That would be the view that he's trying to refute. Right.
And then he like goes ahead and does it. Like
Yeah.
what does he think he's doing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What would he say the value is, and what would he say that Chazal thought about the value of what he's doing
Right.
if they didn't do it?
Right.
Because they're Chasidim. Like what is that?
He's not a classic.
Yeah.
That's what he would say.
Right, but what did they think about it? Because to me, I mean, maybe his whole idea of Hasidus is different. My idea of Hasidus is like a Lifnim Yishur Sedin idea. Like you have the main thing and you're going beyond that. But he's saying that they weren't on the basic level. They didn't do the basic level.
Sounds to me it's just like the Tafel.
Right.
Not that it's
Yeah,
not
Iker and Tafel. He does use that lashon Iker. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do Saadia Gaon now. Okay. Yeah.
Wait, and was Rashi really doing shot? Like brings in all
I mean, Rashi does a lot of pshat. Yeah, I mean, again, so machlok is whether he's doing exclusively pshat or not, because there's a very ambiguous way to read his mission statement of I've only come to do pshat and explain the ambiguities of the lashon. So like, is that two different goals, or is that like pshat and that meaning like he's yeah.
Is there a recording?
Just had a mute in my head.
Yeah.
Is it just confirming, is the recording ready?
Is it? Yeah, it is. Why?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Just
Yeah.
sure that it was.
Oh, yeah. Okay, Saadia Gaon? Okay. Amar HaMafaresh, Kevan she'ein gvul l'chovasenu l'hodos. Oh, he gives a little hakdama like the Gaonim did, right? A little praise hakdama. Is it Ryan? Kim she'ein gvul l'chovasenu l'hodos u'l'hala l'fnei Hashem Yisrael me'rumusa al kol asher heiti v'imano. No, it doesn't. L'fi she'ein gvul l'yicholtenu asher biglala nahalalenu v'in kates l'falo asher ba'avura nishavachenu. Yeah, it kind of rhymes. L'chol hatoda hachi chashuva hi ha'ilui v'ashevach hachi nichbad hi hu haromus yishala Hashem Yisbarach asher mitziuso nitzchis v'achduso amitis v'chachmaso hi ha'chachma ha'muchletes hayachal v'yichalto hi ha'shlema ha'metiv ha'tava gemura ha'mromam al kol shel ha'kutila. Okay. Beautiful phrase. Okay, let's go on. All right. After the introduction, Nomar will say, Kasher Rata Hacham Yisbarach B'Sifro Zeh. This is funny how it calls God Hacham Yisbarach. Right? As the wise one, blessed is he, said, wanted to do in the sefer, L'lamin es b'nei Adam l'han chosam l'mashma'uso v'avodaso, to guide people to obeying him and serving him. Kevan shahalimud yihyeh al shlosh devarim, and since learning is through three methods, back to drachim here. Okay, but this is the drachim of learning. Echad chashiv mechaver, one better than more chashiv than the other. Haderech harishon vuha kashav behem. So the first way, which is the lightweight of them, hu sheyi amir lazeh shirotim lalamdo aseh kach v'al taseh kach. Do this, don't do this. Mibli legalos lo tachli satuv v'ashar, without telling him why. Okay, the purpose of the mitzvah or the prohibition. Because the guy who's commanded will know that this is what he's supposed to do and this is what he's supposed to distance himself from. That's derech one. So the second thing is you tell him the reason why you're commanding it. Okay. Do this, and this will be your reward. Don't do this, or this will be your punishment. But this is more chashiv than the first way. Because the guy who's commanded will literally to describe for himself. I think it means like to conceive for himself the good or the bad that will come to him from the actions that he does. But derech hashlishi hu she'im hodas hamitzuva v'musar gemulo hatov al mashmas yisaper lo ma shiur libnei adam asher shamulu lekol hamitzvah v'hitzlicho. So the third way is, in addition to telling him the reward for the good, for obeying him, you tell him what happened to people who listened to the voice of the commander and succeeded. And when you tell him about the punishment that he's going to get for his wickedness, you tell him about like people who did violated this and got punished. This is more chashiv than the first two. Because experience and real world examples, maseh, engrave themselves in the mind of the listener more as if he saw it himself. Who uses this, Derek? Shlomo Melech.
Boom.
It's all of Mishlei, right? Is telling you, I mean, he doesn't even do the first one. He barely does the first. He doesn't tell you do this and don't do this. He tells you the consequences. And he gives you depictions of people who this happens to, because that impacts the emotions. Yeah.
Can live here be hard?
Yeah, it can be hard. Yeah, I think mind is best because mind is intellect and emotions.
Not very clear what these are drachim
of teaching someone something.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, like anything, like if I wanted to tell you how to do any skill, martial arts, writing a paper, Okay. Ulazeh raha chacham yisbarach laseis lanu sifro asher ra'abo hachsharas ha'enushos. So for this reason, then that wise one, God, gave us his book, saw fit to give in his book, which is for the perfection of human beings. V'kolal bo shloshes hadrachim ha'ela. He included in it these three paths. Kedei shetiyeh b'tachlis hatikkun v'asidur, so that it would be of the utmost, perfection and orderedness. So if one thing he did is he commanded his servants to do righteousness and not do wickedness. And he promised them for the good when they do it. And he intimidated them about the bad actions. And he told them what happened to the early ones. The people who did good in the land succeeded, and the people who corrupted their way failed. So that there would be no derech of limud missing in this book. Now, what question can you ask on this? Yeah.
Well, I was just thinking, normally it does seem it's using the first one.
Normally?
Yes.
What do you mean?
The Torah definitely tells you to do the mitzvahs to have good and have brachos, but normally it doesn't tell you what happens.
Right.
Or it just says, take a
Right. I mean, like proportionally, it seems like
proportionally.
right. Proportionally, there are more mitzvahs, and then less telling you reasons, and then even less examples of what happened when people violated or succeeded.
Yes.
Yeah. I hear that. Yeah. So I guess that's going to compound the question I was going to ask. But what question can you ask based on the way he presented these three things?
Why use the first one?
Yeah, like why don't you just do the third way, where you just say like everything? Like he starts off by emphasizing how the first one is the least chashuv, then more chashuv, then more chashuv, and then he, which makes you sound like, oh, if you are a good teacher, you'll only do the third way, where you command them, tell people why, and illustrate for them what happened. But then he says that because God wanted to make his book perfect, he included all three. Yeah.
Well, because that might be the optimal way to teach, but you need the optimal student to receive that.
Okay.
So,
That's
so
possible.
So if you're teaching to three types of students,
Yeah.
you need to include three types of,
Yeah. Okay. So I think there's one more premise that you need to make that answer complete. I think
that the Torah is meant for all people.
Two more premises. Yeah, that's one. But I think you'd also have to say that if you taught someone who is only like on level 1 and you taught them using method 3, then that's going to be less effective for them.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you could still say that you're just going to use all the third level, right? Yeah. So like for certain people, then just being told what to do and what not to do is going to be the best. And if you told them, and this is the reason for it, that's going to somehow distract or detract from the actual limud. Or if you tell them examples, then that's also going to distract or detract, and like, I think there are clear examples of that. Like what would be a way that it would be harmful or not effective to tell them the reasons?
Well, the most typical example that like people bring is with the kid who runs into the street.
Yeah.
The parent just tells him like, don't do that. And that's the message you need to get into the kid's head, because he doesn't understand, the conceptualization of a car possibly coming at that time that could.
Right. So let's just flesh that out. So then what happens if the parent tells the kid?
Yeah. So the kid's he's not going to get the message. Like he'll be confused. Like, or maybe he'll try to like take the reason and then like darken his own logic based off that reason and come to a bad conclusion.
Right. So I think,
If you just say do this and don't do this, then that has then that puts into like hopefully like relying on authority. Type framework.
But once you give a reason,
then it shifts away from the authority.
Exactly right, and then it puts it onto him. And if his mind is not capable of understanding it, so then either it's going to dilute the power of the command, because it'll be like, do this because here's the incomprehensible thing, and then you're just not going to be motivated because you don't understand what should be motivating you, or you're going to run into a problem where like you're going to view it as like a qualification that's going to diminish the absoluteness of it, like the keep kosher to train yourself in self-control. Well, if I have self-control, then I don't need to, like you could start to rationalize things or either in action or in mind, like viewing it as though if the reason doesn't apply, then it's less of a tzivui or less important. Or let's say like, do this so you'll succeed like so-and-so. Well, I see plenty of people doing this not succeeding like so-and-so, so that like takes away from the power. So you need a certain level of maturity in order to like have that. Yeah, I think that's the answer.
Yeah, and I think cynical people are very prone to that.
Yeah. But the thing is, still though, you need the third level, because if you only had the first level, so then people might think that there is no benefit or that the benefits didn't actually play out. So you need to exemplify it. So I think it is a good statement saying that it includes all three. Yeah. Okay. The dugma shloshes drachim ela. Now give some examples. Yeah. Oh, sorry. We are at okay. The dugma shloshes drachim ela b'torah kagon mash amar Hashem Yisrael v'Yisrael la'Aharon al yava b'chol esal kodesh. So an example of these three things is when he tells Aaron, do not come at all times into the Kodesh. Vigilolo tachlis hadavar b'amrov lola yamus. He says the reason for the thing, or else you'll die. V'izkiru ma she'ira lebanav ba'asosam kagon zeh b'amro acharei mos shnei b'nei Aharon. That's an example of all three.
That's tough.
Tough in
like
what way?
just like I don't know. I never thought of post it that way.
Yeah, me neither.
To hear like.
Oh yeah.
Remember your kids like.
Yeah. Right.
Not just level 3.
It is level 3, yeah. Yeah, he's just saying like you see the three elements here. Tzivui, and then the reason, and then an example.
Yeah, if you did all three, wouldn't that? I'm sorry. If you said the third one, wouldn't that include all three automatically?
I don't know, because you wouldn't necessarily say that it is a commandment. Certainly, they did this and they died. Right. And you would not necessarily know that the thing that happened to them was as a result of them violating the commandment. Yeah, what?
I guess there's the authoritative statement, which isn't included in saying what the reward's going to be, and it's not it's not included in the demonstration of that. And so that's why like the second and third don't necessarily include the first. I guess also the second element is that of saying what the consequences are going to be is a universe that you won't necessarily know just from seeing a story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But the story makes it real to the person.
Right. Yeah, let's go with it. Okay, then he says, the domel lezeh gamash amar Shlomo kasher hisiru min ha'atzlus b'inyane ha'emuna v'ha'olam. So this is what Shlomo says also in when he warns you about being lazy in matters of emuna and the world. I think olam hazeh. Al te'ahav shena. Al te'ahov shena. I don't know how to vowelize that. Don't love sleep, etc. Uber shepri ha'atzlus hedar kol tuv. And the consequence of laziness is you're going to be missing all good. Bamru tavas atal tumiseno, like he says, the desire of a lazy person kills him. Kimi ano yadav lasas, is that what he said? Yeah, because his hands refuse to act. Ha'inyan mi shinis atal milahashgiach al sadehu ad she'ala kulu kimshonim v'neher su gedarav. So the case is where a person is too lazy to watch over his field, and it becomes overgrown with nettles, and the fence becomes worn down. Vu amru al sadeh ish atel avarti, and then he says, "I passed by the field of a lazy man." That's the real world example. Okay, so same method in Shlomo. Ulefi haseder hashalim batachlis roy lahakdim hatzivoy. According to the perfected order, you need to start off with a tzivoy, the acharav tachlis tzivoy, then the purpose or the outcome of the command, the acharav sipur masha'ira, and then afterwards the telling what happened. I mean, that's the logical order, right? I mean,
also they do progress.
That is true. Yeah, although even Cosby would say that it doesn't matter the order, but yeah, it does work that way. Torah lo nitna b'tchilas says, oh, yeah.
Point to be drawn here about his approach to Mishlei, and then he's saying that it's doing these three things in like a procession.
See, that's the thing that I was warning about how like drawing conclusions about his whole derech from what he says without data. Like, I'm not prepared to say that.
It sounded like that was what he said.
Yeah.
I really misunderstood what he was saying.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, he's saying
he says afterwards that point, certainly, but
he's certainly saying Mishlei is doing that in this case.
Yes, right, but not necessarily to infer about how Mishlei is doing that, like in order of the book.
I misunderstood what he was actually saying. Here.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible he holds that because he does follow it up with that point. I just
no, I wasn't extrapolating.
Okay.
I thought that this is what he said.
I see. Yeah.
Like, it was that,
Excused. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So that makes this interesting point. Kevan Torah lo nitna b'tchilas hazman. Since the Torah was not given at the beginning of time, meaning at like with Adam and Rishon, lefi shechayva chachmaso yis ala shen tinasin ve'es shehigiu b'nei Adam lemispar hashalim asher yisharu be'erach kamohu. So people ask this question, which is why didn't God give the Torah like from the beginning? Why did God wait until like Har Sinai to give the Torah? He says there weren't enough people, right? I don't know exactly how to interpret this last part. Yisharu be'erach kamohu, that there would remain of that value, like it. Don't know what it means. L'chein chayva chachmaso yisbarach lahodiam bekitzur Mashiur lakodmim kadesh yasu masha shishavach mimase akodmim yisrachaku mikol masha gina mimase arishonim. So therefore, God, it was necessary for Hashem through His wisdom to inform them concisely what happened to their predecessors, in order that they will do what was praiseworthy of the actions of their predecessors, and then distance themselves from what was disgraceful. Meaning, he had to tell. He's explaining why does the Torah include all of the stuff about like the people before Matan Torah. Why? To encapsulate like all the good stuff that happened to them, all the bad stuff that happened to them for that third derech. V'sipur v'hisdir kol ze mitchilas habriya ad zman Matan Torah, and he told about this and arranged it all from the beginning of creation until the time of Matan Torah. And then he commanded and prohibited and promised and intimidated. Like Ibn Ezra says, right? The Torah was only given to people who were Bali Das, so too here. Right? Is that out of the premise that he's only speaking with people who have a complete mind, intact minds that are clean from all affliction. Yeah.
What is that?
He's saying that God is talking to a certain audience of people who are Bale Dea Shlema Unikia Mikol Nega.
All of them?
That's who the Torah is intended for, he's saying.
What about everyone else? Like around.
Screw them, yeah. What?
None. What's the
I mean, but that is the same point that Ibn Ezra made in several places, right? It's like Lo Nasna Torah Rach Lebali Dahadas. Lo Nasna Torah Lasher in Secholo, Malkin Elokav, right? Like that, yeah. I don't know what level. I mean, I don't think he's saying it's only to like the most intelligent people, but people who are like whose das is intact. And I also don't know why he's saying this here,
And what's he saying about why wasn't he giving Saadia?
That there weren't enough people. He doesn't explain. Yeah, yeah. We can think about that afterwards if we have time. Now, you who are looking to this sefer, I think he means his sefer. Im gadol erko v'yikar ma'alaso ach ein lahashvos elav afilu shar sefer nevuah. Oh no, he means Chumash. That despite its tremendous worth and stature, that you can't compare it to other books of nevuah. V'afal pi shekfi pshat lashono yesh lefarsh hastumos v'hakashos shebo. Even though, according to the pshat of the language, one needs to explain the concealed and difficult things in it. Don't think that the only thing God wants you to get from this is what's written in it. There are two other purposes, or two other things that God wants from you. Logical proof, logical argument. Asher ba yeda ha'adam shekol ha'atzamim hanirim b'chol ashar hanigasim hanisagim b'chush chidsham hanitzchi she'en lo reishis v'latachlis. That person should know that all essences that are all phenomena that are seen, that are grasped in the senses, God, the Eternal One, created them anew. Created them new. The God who has no beginning, no end, created them new. Vishu echad, he is one. V'shein dome l'shum davar mikol hanimtzayim v'imhem hadomelo, and that he is not similar to them, to the created things in all of his creations in any way. And he's not comparable to them. He doesn't have emotions. V'shu hachacham yodea ma sheyeh kodem sheyeh, and he knows what is going to be before it's going to happen. Vishua Bore, and he's the creator. Bore Komash Yirtze B'li Chomer, and he created everything that he wanted to without
substance.
I think it means without he didn't create the. I think it means he created Yesh Me'ayin. Yeah, right. V'shu Tzadik Lo Hitil Al Avadav Davar Asher Lo Yuchlos Eso, and he's righteous and he will not impose upon his servant something that they cannot tolerate. I don't know why he's saying that you have to get all of this before Torah.
Maybe just logically it precedes Torah.
Yeah, but he called it a drisha, right? A thing that God is seeking, because he said, "Don't think that the only thing God wants from this book is what's written in it. He also wants Does he mean that he wants you to figure all of this out in addition to learning the Torah?
It sounds like to me.
Yeah, I'm just not sure. I feel like I'm missing what he's getting at.
Or is this part of what you're supposed to get from the Torah?
No, I think that's the point that he's making.
Yeah, I think he's saying that you're not getting it from the
You're not
Torah.
getting it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, let's finish the paragraph and see. So too the other foundations of Emunah that are learned out through rational proofs. Like mitzvos sichlios, that's Saadia Gaon for Mishpatim, right? Like things you could figure out with your mind. Of righteousness and uprightness. Okay, fine. Sorry. See, now he's talking about his sefer. I will refrain from bringing proofs about these things in this sefer because I didn't write it for this purpose. So he's saying, don't expect to find rational proofs for the ideas of the Torah in my commentary. Okay, he does that in most videos. Vadrisha Shenis, and the second objective, Ba'a La'achar HaTorah, comes after Torah. V'hi Yedias Mesoras HaNavim, its knowledge of the prophetic tradition. Eich hayu morim b'chol davar chadash asher ye'era ben b'nei Adam, how they instructed in each new thing that happened to people. V'heach hayu osim es hamitzvos hashmayos she'ena sechel doche osan v'lo machayvan, and how they did the obedience mitzvos, that's code word in Saadia Gaon for chukim, which the intellect doesn't reject. But it's possible to impose them upon a person. And when the Nevi'im instructed us to do it, it became a chova. Rather, their quantity and quality ain't meforsh b'Torah. Kamus hatfila, v'kamus hatstaka, v'ekus hamalacha b'Shabbos, u'shara mitzvos hashmayos. I don't know what he's saying. I mean, it sounds like he's talking about Torah Sheba'al Peh, but it also sounds like he's only confining it to chukim.
And he's talking about the Nevi'im?
Yeah, Nevi'im. I don't know why he's saying Nevi'im instead of God. You know, I'm also not going to write that in the Sefer because that's not what I wrote it. Right, because that's the one we lost. Right, I wrote about it. I linked there. V'lochi barti sefer zeh ela lebakashas echal hatalmidim. Oh, this is how you see how far a Rebbe goes for his Talmud. I only wrote this because one of my students asked me. Okay, asher bikesh mimeni liyached lepshatei haTorah sefer miyuchad. He said, Rebbe, can you just make like a book just about the pshatei haTorah? V'li l'shalev bo davar mishimush halashon umilim hamuchulafim hamahufachos v'hamushalos, without joining into it all of the different ways that language is used. V'lo avi bo she'elos hakofrim. I'm not going to do polemics. I'm not going to bring in the questions of the kofrim. V'lo tshuvasi aleim, and not my responses to them. V'lo anfei hamitzvos hasichlios, and not the branches of the mitzvos sichlios. It might be, by the way, that even though mitzvos sichlios is his word for chukim, it might be that he's using it in a more expansive sense of any aspect of the mitzvos that you couldn't derive on your own. And that's why he's saying that it had to be like the details of certain things.
That's different.
Oh, sorry, no, you're right. That's Shmayos. Never mind. Forget it. So I'm not going to bring the branches of the mitzvos sichlios. Lo heach asiyas mitzvos Shmayos, not how to do the obedience mitzvos. Ela etargim inyanet mikros haTorah bilvad. I'm just going to translate the psukim of the Torah alone. Re'isi ki hadavar shebikshuni yesh bo toelas laman yishmu v'yavinu hashomim inyanei Torah. I saw that the thing that my student asked me for has a tremendous benefit for those to listen to and understand the matters of Torah. Hasipur Hatziv Hagmul, the story and the command and the reward, or the recompense. Al Seder Uv Makutzar, in order and in a concise way. V'lo yarbe esek mavakish leda eze inyan min Torah bigla mashi kanes bo min ha'hochachos al kol davar davar peni hi alav lamasa. I'm not going to bring all these proofs because that's going to be too burdensome. V'im achar zeh yirtze lamod biyasodios al kol mitzvah min mitzvos asichlios v'heach maaseh hashmayos uvmei yitchu tainos hatonim al parshios haTorah yivakish kol zeh b'sifrei ha'acher. So if you want to understand how to do all the mitzvos, and how to refute all the kofrim, so then look at my other book. This is the short version, and you'll find what you're looking for. So after I saw fit to do all this, I wrote a book which is a targum of the pshat of the psukim alone. So that's the tafsir. That's the Saadia Gaon translation of Chumash in Arabic, which the Teimanim read as part of the Kriyas Torah Ad Hayom. It's on YouTube, right? They do every pasuk, the Mikra, the Targum of Onkelos, and then the Targum of Saadia Gaon. Long Kriyas Torah. What was it?
Do they speak Arabic?
Yeah, Judeo-Arabic, yeah. I mean, probably regular Arabic also. Meduich al piyam muskal hamakubal, and it is precise in accordance with rationality and tradition. And when I can add a word or a letter that will reveal the idea or the intent in these in a way that will be sufficient just through an allusion, I'll do it. Velukim iazer b'chol maturusi hatovos b'inyane ha'emunu v'inyane ha'olam gam yachad. God will help me. Yeah. So that's, again, if you look at, I have a volume of Saadia Gaon of the long Perush, and it's just the one that was lost. It's just like fragments of it, and it's about like maybe like 1.5 times this thick. And that's just on Shemos, so like the long Perush was very long, and the short one is just like the short one. I think is even they don't have the whole thing, but I think they have fragments of it in the Torah Chaim.
It seems like from him, it's not like necessarily intrinsically good to like study Chumash. It's just like it would be good for people to like know about the reward and the tziburi and all that. So that's why he's doing it. Like he's not doing it for himself necessarily.
Well, it sounds like the first part of what he was saying about what God did in the Torah is a statement about God, right? About how perfect God's Torah is.
Yeah.
And then
it has these benefits.
And then that's not necessarily a statement about what's important and not, because even he's acknowledging that there's a lot more stuff that's important that he's just not writing about in this Perush. Like all of the Yesodos HaEmunah and then how to do all the mitzvos and responding to the Kofrim. Like he's saying that that's part of Torah. And that's part of what God wants in the Torah. Yeah, I assume he was Chumash in all this, yeah. But he's just saying that that's not something that he's doing here.
Okay.
Yeah. And that doesn't fit squarely into those categories, right? Like if you're expanding on like the fact that, how God created the world and all that stuff, that's not really in mitzvos.
Right.
Like his 3 drachim really seem to be about mitzvos specifically.
Yeah.
Or the narrative portions where you see how people lived,
But you don't necessarily have like Omek shot in his deck.
Certainly, yeah, we don't see that from here, right? I mean, he did emphasize that he wants to do the Pshuto Shemikra in his Targum, but I don't know about the Omek part. And I forgot to say by the Rashbam, by the way, that's one thing that like he said the Derech Eretz thing, but what does he mean by Omek Hapshat? And he uses that phrase throughout his commentary. Like, what is the depth of the Pshat? Does that just mean as opposed to the surface level literal meaning? Yeah, that's a question. I would say Omek Hapshat. If I use that phrase, it would mean like the full content of what the author meant, expounded, like, but I don't know what he means by it. All right, there you go. Yeah.
I have a possible thing that could mean.
Yeah. The Omek shop.
What do you say?
The Omek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I've heard shiur where they like go like really in depth into like the nuance of what the pasuk is saying, and just like asking questions, and then like developing it's like a much richer explanation of what was happening in like the stories.
Are you talking about like Rebbe's Sodom and Gomorrah shiur?
Yeah.
I knew it. Yeah.
Well, I wasn't talking about that just specifically.
Yeah, but that's an example where he
Yeah.
says that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I get that impression also. Like there's the shot, which is just what is being conveyed through the words, and then there's, if you develop like a full understanding of the ideas there, or the scenario, or like the goings on,
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
thinking about the when Sarah gives Hagar to Abraham,
Mhm.
and then like Hagar gets pregnant and starts like starts belittling Sarah, and then Sarah gets mad at Abraham.
Yeah.
And says that
Right. So you could have like a targum unclos, but not get insight into like that. But insight into that would be like the omek shal,
Yeah.
omek shal pshuta, omek shot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty. There's Saadia Gaon.
Good.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any requests for who we do next?
Rambam.